Welcome to Fotofoto Gallery. I'm Pamala Waldroup. I am president of the gallery and one of the photographers here in our collective. You can see also, it says the guy with the headset on, there he is, he can wave. Okay, it says Eileen Novak, but that's Paul Mele. He is our vice president at Fotofoto Gallery, and Eileen, who did a fantastic job as competition coordinator for this show, is also our treasurer, and Paul and Eileen are also photographers in our cooperative. So let me tell you a little bit about the gallery. Fotofoto Gallery was founded in October 2003 by a group of Long Island-based photographers who wanted to promote both experimental and traditional photographic processes and visions. And we have continued to do that. Currently, the gallery is located at 14 West Carver Street in Huntington, New York. And it is in 2010, the gallery was awarded a status as a 501c3 nonprofit organization. I like to, for those of you who are local, who might be considering presenting a portfolio as consideration for membership in our gallery, just want to quickly tell you that the members of our gallery have opportunities both for solo exhibitions and also to participate in up to 8 group exhibitions. In addition to our national photography competition, we also have a very popular competition, which is coming up in 2 months, and that's called Your Best Shot. It is a competition where prints are submitted, up to 3 prints, and everything is exhibited. But the great thing about it is two of those artists are selected by our gallery members to have mini solo shows in our gallery 1 year from now. And that's coming up next. So Bobby Allen and Sharon Harris are going to be exhibiting next. Fantastic works. Sharon Harris is exhibiting pinhole photography, and Bobby has some remarkable pieces that I believe a lot of which were shot on Montauk. Also, we have workshops that we frequently will offer. We bring in people from outside. Very popular, Tony Monaco was here. I would say, I could talk about the benefits of the gallery, but the very best benefit, as far as I'm concerned, of the gallery is that there's the opportunity for you to discuss with other people your work and their work, and to share your insight and see what is going on. I do want to be sure to thank our sponsor for the gallery, for this particular competition. The Huntington Arts Center, Tom Northrup and Wendy Curtis very generously sponsored our first place award. So I want to be sure to thank them. If you're interested in anything that I just mentioned, please go to our website, fotofotogallery.org, our Facebook page, which is just Fotofoto Gallery, Instagram. There's lots of places where we're very visible, including, and Eileen is responsible for this, we have a terrific YouTube channel. That said, I would like to thank Eileen Rafferty for being our juror. She's done a fantastic job. If you've seen any of the video footage of our gallery in the show, I think you'll immediately be impressed with the diversity of the show. They're beautiful, powerful images. And I found her juror statement to be not only interesting, but it provided some new insight for me that I hadn't thought about. So Eileen Rafferty is an artist and educator who travels the country teaching topics such as creativity and photographic history. She was a guest instructor portfolio reviewer from 2011 to 2016 at the B&H event space in New York City. She's also a freelance photographer and a video editor, and owns a creative consulting business to guide and motivate clients in nurturing a creative life. Great website. Check it out, definitely. Her artwork combines a lifelong study of photography to create mixed media, video, drawings, and photographs. She often incorporates archival photographs and is influenced by Japanese art and culture. Eileen earned an MFA in photography and film and a BS in human physiology, and her home is currently in Missoula, Montana. So welcome, Eileen. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see. Let me, let's see, Eileen, there you are. Okay, so Eileen, I'm going to ask you, do you want me to spotlight you and then start sharing the slideshow, or how would you like to progress? Eileen Rafferty?
Oh, Eileen Rafferty. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we have two Eileens. I'm sorry. Yes. Would you like for me to spotlight you and then just tell me when you want me to start sharing?
Sure. And you just want me to say a little bit about each of the images in the slideshow, or?
Well, I think I found particularly interesting your overall view of your selection process. And I've had some conversations with some members of our own collective that they had really not approached their own photography in that way. So I think it would be particularly interesting for our viewers to hear that.
Sure.
So whatever you would like to share.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, it was interesting writing the juror statement. I was aware of what I was looking for as I was looking through all the entries. But it was kind of nice when I had to write the juror statement to have a cohesive, you know, understanding after the fact. And really, you know, as I said in the statement, for me, I think there was over 500, between 500 to 600 entries.
Yes.
And I've, you know, judged contests before and done lots of critiques. And so I was really looking for, with that many images, I was really looking for, as I said in the juror statement, you know, images that were made rather than simply found. And even if there were images in the show that seemed as if they were found, to me, there was something else there. There was some unique approach in the technique, in the concept. Maybe there was some metaphor there, or even if it was a found image, perhaps I found something unique about that image itself. And so I was really looking for images that stood out to me creatively, whether that was in the approach or the technique, or like I said, in the idea behind it. And as I said, hopefully in the presentation. I mean, I don't get to see the presentation. I mean, and also when I'm judging the images, I don't know, besides the scale that was mentioned in the entry, how it would be presented. But I'm hoping some of the photographers were able to follow through and be creative in the way they were presented as well. And so, yeah, I was really looking, like I said, for a unique approach. And I really felt like in the end, all the images that were included, you know, were by photographic artists who were thinking beyond a simple photograph.
I'd like to share. Paul and I are the two people who curated the show, and it was a little different than some of our shows in the past because our feeling was that you really were looking at each piece on their own individual strengths and merits, and which wonderful. And so to create the flow in the show really had us re-examine our own thinking about what was happening in the show. I love that. You know, it was like a jolt to a new way of looking at the works. And we have had nothing but compliments about the show. But the interesting thing is the people who have come in and looked at the show have commented that each individual piece is wonderful on its own merit, and then said that they loved the show in addition to that. So I think that's an amazing insight for people to pick up on that. So, folks, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat, and periodically, if it's okay with Eileen Rafferty, we will, stop and, if you'd like to ask something. With that said, Eileen, do you want me to start sharing the screen?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Let me, okay, let's see. Okay. And okay. Can everyone see the screen okay?
Yeah.
All right, that's great. The first screen that you see, of course, is the first slide that you see is the poster, which was created by Mele, and we have two posters. This one features the award-winning works of the first, second, and third place artists, which Eileen will speak about. And by the way, a little plug here. We also sell these posters. It helps to raise money for our gallery. So if anyone is interested, please let us know in the chat. Please email us. Both this poster and the poster that shows everybody's works are available. In our next slide, this, for those of you who want to look at this again on YouTube or share it with someone, Eileen's bio is here. And the third slide is the poster. Both of these posters are hanging in our gallery and also in our window on our website. I love it that you can see everybody's works. And then if you want to, at your leisure, go through Eileen's absolutely wonderful statement. It is also a part of the slideshow that's available. And I wanted to include an overview of our gallery. We're sitting at that black table right now. So we were very fortunate during COVID. I mean, this is absolutely astounding. At the beginning of COVID, our gallery closed for 5 months. And we weren't sure what was going to happen. At that time, the gallery was half the size, and the shop that was in the back part of the space closed. We were able to expand not only into the back space, but also to expand the number of photographers in our gallery. And as a result, we have this wonderful, luxurious space that occupies the entire gallery at this time. So it's awesome that we could have the national show in an entire space. So Eileen, first up, here we go.
Yeah, so, this image, and I wanted to respond to Pamela, what you said about, when I was looking through the entries, I certainly was evaluating them individually because I couldn't even begin with that many entries to start to see this cohesive show. And, and congrats to you guys, because hanging a show is an art in and of itself. And so I really was focusing on each individual image. And then as I started to narrow them down, I was not only looking for, as I said in the statement, images that I felt that were made and took either, unique approaches or techniques or ideas, but also I was trying to find diversity in the definition of what a photograph can be. So, I didn't want all straight photographs, or I didn't want all darkroom techniques, or I didn't want all photo montage, right? So I wanted a really broad collection of, like I said, what a photograph can be. And these images by Carol, there were several entries, and all of them really stood out to me as soon as I saw them. I mean, as I was flagging, actually in my process, I was flagging images I didn't want that were not going to make it first, because it was almost easier for me to say, I don't think this is strong enough. I don't think this is strong enough. And then what I was left with was when I started to go through. But there were some images to me that from the very beginning struck me. And Carol's images immediately struck me, not only for their visual beauty, but for the color palette, for the layers of imagery here. It was the overall effect of the layers, but then as I started to dive into observing what these layers were, that really interested me. And then just the overall, like I said, color palette and beauty of the image itself. So it struck me as someone who, you know, wasn't just playing with photo montage or collage, but had this intentional idea of the end product or the end image. And as I said in my statement, I felt like it sort of brought me into this otherworldly, you know, botanical garden. And so the feeling of the feeling that this image left me with, you know, not only the beauty and the techniques, but the feeling that it left me with was what really struck me.
The print itself even more fully emphasizes exactly what you're saying. It is incredibly rich. When we, the other Eileen is going to give us a little walking tour of the gallery a little bit later. And as I point now in the back here is where Carol's piece is located. I think Carol actually may have just joined us right before you started speaking.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes.
I'm joining you from Vero Beach, Florida, and I'm a guest right now in a friend's birthday party. I'm so I couldn't spend more time, but I am beyond honored with this exhibit, and I so appreciate all of your comments. And you know, you've captured you've obviously the intention I had for this piece, you've completely understood it and been able to articulate it as well. So I appreciate that. And, you know, there's this intense joy of shooting and then reinterpreting what you see every day. And I think that's certainly my mission, but it's also to tell a story that perhaps wasn't there or wasn't clear, but be able to format a piece that tells a more intense story, I suppose. But thank you, and I'm so grateful.
Thank you very much, Carol. Okay. I love the next one just as much. It's awesome, and I know I don't want to mispronounce your name, and I know you're here. What's the correct pronunciation for your name?
Oh, my name is Manju, but you guys can call me Jane.
Okay, thank you.
Well, this was another one that I think there were a couple entries as well, a couple, you know, different versions. And this one also struck me immediately. I kind of tucked this one aside as one that I wanted to look at closely later. There's so many elements of this that I love. Again, you know, the color palette. I talked about the color palette in the first one, and this is subjective, of course, but this really neutral, you know, kind of monochromatic color palette really drew me in. The overall grid, so the display or layout of using multiple images in the grid really grabbed me, but then seeing multiple images within each of the squares in the grid also intrigued me. And then also the, you know, the use of text or handwriting that connects the images as well. So I felt like there was this beautiful, again, intentional connection with the color palette, with the subject of the images, and then this you know, circle of text that's sort of joining all the images. I also thought it was a really great use of so many different techniques, not only the grid, but soft focus, and then multiple images within each one, and then this use of circles in the top middle one. So it just, again, felt really intentional, really considered, and really beautiful. And also, again, there was something I could tell that there was metaphor and symbol and ideas here. And that to me is what really makes a photograph or a piece of art really strong.
In looking at the piece, I felt like it was both literally and figuratively a window into Jane's narrative.
Yeah,
wonderful.
I think I said that in the statement, a juror statement of something. I felt like it was a personal memoir or journal that I was peering into, and I really loved that.
Is there anything you wanted to add, Jane?
Yeah, thank you so much. First, this is my great honor to win the second place. Actually, I'm just a student, so I'm totally a freshman about art marketing. So I think everyone is my teacher, can teach me learn about how to figure out this marketing. So let me introduce about my works. This is from my MFA thesis. So this theory is about, I want to explore the relationship between me and the people around me. So it is the relationship between me and the people important to me. And for this one, you can see the title, which is 1994, the year I was born. So this one is the one piece that represents myself. So I use the grid as the format to express the relationship. You can see there that there is an actual framing into the grid. So which I want to say that the frame is like the relationship. So sometimes the relationships such as the parents of us, the boyfriend, the girlfriend, the couples, they will protect us. They will give us the inspiration, give us such as this kind of thing, but also give me the limitation. So such as this kind of framing us into this. And for this one, which is represent myself. So the subject matter in each grid actually is the physical works of my previous works. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think as an artist, our works always to represent ourselves. So I choose my physical works as this piece subject matter. And there is one thing that is very important I want to mention is that all of the material, all of the grid into this piece was shot by the antiquity film, which was from the 1994, this year, the specific year. So you can see that there are a lot of texture here. There's something foggy. It's not very clear. That kind of blurred feeling is what the age gives us.
I can't wait to look at your print now again more closely after hearing you speak, Jane. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, and then our third place winner, Carrie Walter, White Fallow Buck. Congratulations again to all three of you.
Yeah, this image, there might have been more than two, but there were two that really stayed in my mind from Carrie. I really had a hard time deciding if I wanted this one or the other picture of, I'm assuming the same buck that looked almost like a studio portrait. I really struggled with which one that I wanted to include in the show. And then it was pretty clear to me it was going to be one of the top three images as well, because again, it was one of those images, the minute I saw it, it struck me and it stayed with me. I don't know if you all know the project that Alfred Stieglitz did called Equivalence, where he photographed clouds. It was one of the first photographic series in the late 1800s, but his point was also to say that the photograph is more than the piece of paper, right? Or for us, pixels. That a photograph is a feeling and a metaphor for what the photographer is experiencing as they're making the image. But also, Minor White went on to say it's also a metaphor for what the viewer feels when they look at an image. And thirdly, it's what the viewer takes away from when they see a photograph. So what stays with them. And this was an image that stayed with me, hours and days after I first viewed it. So I decided on this one because I liked that it looked like this buck in its natural element. I liked how the buck really stood out from the darkness of its environment with the trees, and just the sheer beauty of recording this moment really struck me. And then of course all the symbolism and metaphor for the buck or the white wild creature and what that symbolizes in so many cultures. So again, a really beautiful image. And I was also paying attention in these top three entries at the scale of the print that they were submitting. Because when I saw this, for instance, or the other two, I didn't want to see them as an 8x10. I wanted to see them large. And so that was another defining factor for me. I liked that the scale of these top 3 images were bigger. And I'm not saying bigger is better and every image needs to be big. I think there's something to be said about small scale and an intimate viewing. But for this particular image, I was glad to see that it was a 24 by 24. So just stunning, stunning image overall.
I want to also comment on the way the piece is framed. It has a black frame that's about maybe 1.5 inches. And it again, it's stunning when you walk in the room. Oh yeah, Paul is walking over now, so you can see a little bit about the image. But is Carrie here? Not sure if Carrie could make it or not. Okay. All right. Did anyone have any comments or questions about anything so far before we move on? You're just giving me so much to think about, Eileen, in my own work. I measure the success of my work also by what room there is for individual interpretation and for what the person can personally take away from the work when they see it and later.
Yep.
Okay, so the rest of the show, the rest of these are in alphabetical order. Is Elliot here? Okay, so Eileen, however you want to deal with this, like if you want me to go through these, just let me know what you would like.
I think it would be nice if I said, I'll be very brief since there's so many, but
okay.
I can say what struck me or, why I thought
sure.
it belonged in the show. And again, this juxtaposition of the elderly couple, the high rise behind it, the, construction on the, construction vehicle, but then the construction gate. There's just a lot of, as you said, open for interpretation, but a lot of metaphor happening here and a lot of sort of comparison of, it made me think of how we value or don't value the elderly in our particular culture.
Okay. Next we have Norman, and I may mispronounce the last name, Aragones. Norman, are you here? This is an image that you can't walk by and not stop and really look more closely to see what's going on.
Yeah, it just really stuck with me. I mean, I was judging these the week of Christmas and, maybe that had some impact, but any of us who have lost a loved one, can relate to this moment. And I had a professor once who said, the more personal an image is, the more universal it is. And I think that really encapsulates this image.
Seeing this image, it was interesting for me too, because I see it as almost a kind of, has a little bit of a more vintage kind of feeling to it, but the print itself is an acrylic print.
I'll be there in 5 minutes.
Hello? Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, it's interesting that the presentation is such a high-tech presentation, but it comes off beautifully. The detail is remarkable. And next we have Claude Beller, Ferry Ride.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, great. Awesome.
Yep. Thank you very much for inviting me and having me in the show. What can I say? I'm a New York City street photographer. I shoot primarily in black and white exclusively. And I was doing a project on people commuting and transit, and we had the Staten Island ferry that goes from Lower Manhattan over to Staten Island. And I just walk around with my camera and I wait to see the right elements fall into place in this shot. Everything was in place, but I waited. I needed one more element. I had the light, the reflection, the layering, but I just waited for this man on the left to turn around, and to me that made the photo. And I think that sometimes you don't have the opportunity to wait, but in this case I did, And I was very lucky because I didn't yell at him or anything like that to turn around. He just did. And I think that kind of made it a complete photo. And I just love the, the light, especially and the reflection.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that story, because it's interesting. When I was writing the juror statement, I was really talking about photographers making an image versus just finding one. And but when I said that your approach to light was the one, this is light or composition, this is the one that I had in mind. Like, perhaps you were a street photographer and perhaps it is a quote unquote found image, but it was clear to me that it was a crafted image, that you perhaps, waited for the right light or the right moment and really composed the scene in a way that you wanted. And I mean, it's just striking, the light and shadow, the composition. And then I agree, having that gentleman up in the upper left-hand corner, catching him look at the camera when no one else is paying attention was really potent for me.
And the print is stunning, absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I did that myself. Thanks. It feels good.
Wonderful job.
Yeah. It's New York City. It's, it's like hunting. You just keep walking around, and suddenly you come across something like this and you just kind of say, wow, and take the shot. So I was very lucky. Thank you very much, Eileen, for your comments, and thank you for including me in the show.
You're
Much
welcome.
appreciated.
You were very lucky, but you were very ready.
Oh yeah, I mean, you make things happen. I think when we go out each day on the street, we go there with the expectation of something's going to happen, and if you get one shot a week that you like, you're doing well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, next we have Jeremy Blair, Arcadia, which is a photogram. And Jeremy is, I don't think Jeremy is here.
Okay. Well, again, I was really, like I said, I was looking for diverse approaches to what a photograph is, and certainly anything that involves, chemicals, darkroom. That's the land that I came from. That's when I learned photography, eons ago. And that didn't mean that just because it was a photogram or just because it was a darkroom print, it was instantly in. I still wanted to see some crafting, of a photograph and intention. But I loved that this was a photogram, and I loved the depth that was created in the light and shadow and these botanical specimens. I just thought, I've seen a lot of photograms, and I thought this one was actually really well done and well crafted.
Yeah, beautiful. And Carol's piece is in here again, and I repeated the winners in the body of works where it's in alphabetical order, because I figured, when you're sharing with someone else and you tell them go to the YouTube and they're looking, they may not know that it's an award winner. And if they're looking through alphabetically, then that way you can find the piece that you're looking for. Next up, Anne Cognato. Is that Anne? Are you here? She has been in some of our other shows as well, Seagulls.
Yes, I am here. Yeah, I had at the end of a 3-mile hike, and somebody was feeding the seagulls over the lake, and it was just an opportune moment. The sun was starting to drop, and I had just bought a new lens. I was playing with a new lens. Everything just fell into place. I was lucky, and I am honored to be included in this show. So thank you.
Thank you, Anne. As I said before, perhaps it's a found image, or like you said, a quick grab of a moment, but we need to be prepared, and we need to be able to use our equipment properly and technically know what we're doing, even at a fleeting moment like this. But the other thing that struck me about this, obviously this isn't a scene that you can carefully compose. It happens so quickly. But what I really loved was, I think so often in processing, we can be tempted to add a lot of contrast and maybe deepen our blacks and brighten our whites, and whatever you did in processing or didn't do, what I appreciated was the subtlety in the light and color of the image, that there's still this softness, that there's still this feeling of an evening light, an evening glow. So I think that for me, the quality of the light and the processing, again, the holding back on the processing was really beautiful as well.
Thank you for saying that. As someone who loves editing as much as I do shooting and printing, you know, and when I was teaching, question I used to get a lot from advanced students was, well, am I done? Am I, you know, when are you finished? And sometimes we're finished before we stop. You know, and it's hard to know when to hold back and when to stop. This is a beautiful example.
Yep.
Okay. Next up, Matthew Darenzinski. Is Matthew here? Called Evans Garden.
Matthew's not here. Okay. Again, each of you submitted several entries, and there were quite a few from Matthew that really struck me. But this is the one that stood out to me. In again, it's. I mean, you might not use the word subtle here because it's very clearly a digital manipulated photo montaged image. It's not meant to be reality, but I thought there was subtlety in the way that it was montaged and the way the different elements were brought together in this image, the way, you know, whether that's the light and shadow or what elements were highlighted and what elements were left in shadow, and then the little pops of color. Some of the other ones of Matthew's might have been a little more saturated in color, and I liked the subtlety of this one, that there's just these pops of some really simple, almost our primary colors, a little bit of red, green, blue, magenta, yellow, and then all the texture that's happening in the background. So I thought it's interesting because I think sometimes when we see photo montage, you can think, well, anything goes, right? But it's like a painting, you have to craft it. And again, there's, you can go too far and you can make compositions that don't work, and you can add too many layers and too many textures or too many colors. And so again, I thought there was an intention in this and a craftsmanship to it that I actually appreciated.
That's a great word, intention. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Next we have Midori Evans, excuse me. Desert, is Midori here?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, it's actually dessert.
Dessert, I'm sorry, yes.
That's okay. It's on this dessert plate, or
yes.
Plate. So anyway, thank you. It's lovely to be here, and it's quite an honor. I really just wanted to say that I shoot very intuitively. So when I am doing a studio session, it's usually in my house, and I'm just looking around at either objects that I've collected or things that are actually in my house. And the thing that startles people the most is when I tell them that the green in the background of this image is actually one of my gardening tubs. And it was just sitting around where it wouldn't normally be. And I thought, hey, and so therein went the dahlia and the dinner plate.
Well, I mean, again, this image, I kept coming back to it because there was a part of me that wanted to say, I don't know that this belongs in the show because there's so many images that are, so crafted with so much intention. But I kept coming back to this because not only is it just really beautiful, but I could tell that I assumed it was a setup scene, and also your choice of color and composition and arrangement of shapes just kept drawing me in. And I think it's interesting that it comes after the previous image. It's almost on the other end of the spectrum in its simplicity, but I love that simplicity of it. And I love the use of all that negative space. I think negative space is such a fabulous tool that sometimes as photographers we forget about. And so I love all that negative space. And again, your use of color, and then this sort of, dirty, used dessert plate. It looks like dessert has just been eaten, yet the pristine flower on top of it. And so there, for me, I could tell again, there was intention. I assumed that this was a setup scene, and I really loved all the connotation again of this dirty leftover plate, but yet this pristine flower on top of it. Really beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Joseph Gattulli, Untitled 2. Please tell me if I mispronounced your name.
You said it good. You said it good. I'm here.
Oh, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Do you want to say anything about the image, Joseph? Before
It's very experimental. I'm working on a series right now. I'm using some different equipment. I have this little, I'm not even sure what it is. It's a Hoga lens.
Uh-huh.
And it just mounts on a regular 35. And it's wonderful. And I've just been having a really great time with it. And I'd just like to say thank you again. Really honored.
Yeah, thank you. I think there were a couple versions in this vein.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and you know, this one really struck me. And again, I mean, it's playfulness, its use of texture, its use of
Yes.
color, its composition. And for me, I really loved that. I love images. You know, I think Sally Mann said once, you know, if there's not ambiguity in a photograph, I'm not interested. And, you know, that's not necessarily the case for me, but I love when an image intrigues me that I don't necessarily know exactly what I'm looking at all
Yes.
the time. And so I love this layer of what's sharp, what's not, what's reality, what's not, what's close, what's far. And so it really drew me in. And again, the use of the deep shadows in those textures, those vertical lines, and then all the soft color palette. It's really, really beautiful.
Thank you very much.
You know, I want to go back to the previous image for just a moment so that you can absorb this again, and then tell you that these two pieces are hung next to each other in the show.
Nice.
Uh,
You know, when I talked about scale, and this is an image that is relatively small, an 8x10 is relatively small in the photographic world. And that didn't bother me with this one, because I do think, you know, scale is important. And I could imagine this as an intimate, small photograph sort of looking into, could be really nice.
it really invites you to go very close to the surface to see all those wonderful little details, the transparencies, beautifully done.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, and next, Perry I'm sorry, it's part of my screen is
Looks like
covered. Hambright, thank you. Is Perry here?
Guess not.
Mm-mm.
Well, it's interesting because I'm again, I have a very broad definition of what a photograph is, and sometimes digitally manipulated or photo montaged images can be so over the top that I don't even, it's not that I don't want to look at them, but sometimes the technique or the Photoshop or the manipulation takes over the subject of the image itself. So that's all that it's about. But this one so struck me in the storytelling, in the careful, you know, not only the imagining if this is as a photo montage, this person decided, Perry got to choose every single object that was in this scene and put it wherever, I'm assuming he wanted it. And so the way this was crafted and the story behind this, I thought was so lovely. And I do think also the Photoshop work is stellar. And that's not something I can say very often for photo montaged work. It can often be clunky. And I thought this was done extremely well. And I loved just the pure fantasy of it. And like I said, the story behind it, I thought was really just lovely.
One of the things, the image looks great on the screen, but I must tell you, I'm looking right at it right now. The lighting on the actual print is extraordinary. It's magical. It's really beautiful. Okay, and next up we have Dave Hansen, Lost. Dave, are you with us? Okay.
This looked like also it was one of the series of images, because there were several that were in the same, you know, the same sort of setup from different angles. And I struggled a little bit, but I liked this one. I liked how the mannequin in the front seat feels really realistic, feels very human. There's something about the facial expression and the light on the face that really struck me. if you first glance at this, you might think that's an actual live person until you look at the back and then you see this headless mannequin. Then you come to the figure in the front and go, oh, okay, this is a mannequin too. And then maybe you see the mannequin behind it. And so I just thought it was clever, and I thought it was, the light was beautiful. And I thought the choice of the composition, the really tight composition, was really interesting because it really brings you into the face of this mannequin that, again, at first glance sits on the edge of, is this fake? Is this real? And I really love that about photography. I like photography that sort of sits on that edge.
Intention with ambiguity, great combination.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, this piece of Peter Hugh, is that right, Peter? Are you with us? This is located next to this piece. So there, it's interesting to see them juxtaposed against each other.
Mm-hmm. And again, I wanted a diversity in images. So just like as we saw the black and white, street photograph, I wanted to include some landscapes, but I wanted them to be landscapes that really stopped me in my tracks. And again, felt very intentional. And this one did. You can tell by the composition, you can tell by what I'm assuming is the slow shutter speed and the way that it made the water really soft. It's just a stunning image. And then also considering it says pigment print, so I'm assuming it's an inkjet print. The tonal value in this, in the grayscales and from black to white, is absolutely stunning. I mean, it could have been a darkroom print for how well it's done. And so again, I could tell that the processing was really intentional and careful as well.
It's a very beautiful, intimate print too. The 20 by 16 inches includes the mat and frame size. So the piece itself, I would gather, would be maybe about, at the largest, 12 by 12. It's beautiful. Okay. And next we have Brad Jones of Fragile Utopia 73. Brad, are you with us? Okay.
Well, again, the storytelling in this is what really grabbed me. There's so many interpretations, but I really felt like it was had this, filmic quality to it, meaning it could be a still from a movie, right? So as soon as I looked at this, I just went to all these places and started to construct this narrative. And I assumed that it was set up, but possibly not, but I imagined that. And so then I've done a lot of photography myself where I consider a story or a narrative and then I try to convey it. And so I was really drawn to that. And then the color palette, again, the sort of blues in the sky and the cyan of her dress and the green of the grass, and just these little hints of place, a little bit of the farm scenery, her body language, her looking away from the camera. I mean, I immediately thought of Christina's World from Andrew.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a photographic version of that. And that's the compliment. That's not a copying. That's
one of the viewers who came in immediately started talking about that.
Yeah, it's so it maybe that was inspired by that. I don't know, but it's a really, stunning photographic image that is sort of in that same realm of Christina's World.
As you were speaking about that, I was thinking about how wonderful it is that, at least for me, when I look at work, I love that it evokes some kind of historical reference when I'm looking at the work as well. And because I think everything that comes before us in our experiences go into not only shooting, but in appreciating whatever it is that we're seeing that other people have created.
Absolutely.
Okay, next we have Kelly Joslin, Upside Down and Back. Are you here, Kelly?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. this is obviously kind of my interpretation of spending, I go into nature and I really find a lot of solace there, and recognizing that we exist in the space between earth and sky. And so a lot of my work incorporates both of those elements. And I also love a lot of visual texture. So whether I'm working with darkroom based photography or digital photography, I incorporate those elements.
Well, I love that, what you said of this intersection between, did you say between earth and sky or land and sky?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I mean, you know, you can tell that I'm a sucker for technique, right? How many of the images included involve some sort of, you know, show of the hand, like the showing of the technique. The technique isn't hidden. And so I loved the layering of this. And again, I felt like it was very intentional. It didn't feel like this hodgepodge of imagery that, you know, that you were just randomly playing with blending modes in Photoshop. Like it really felt that there was this intentional, you know, composition. And I love, again, the color palette. I loved that when I first looked at it, I felt sky, but then I also felt ice. I kept going to snow and ice and winter, and that could be because it's winter in Montana, but I was also seeing all this white and blue. And so I was left again with this thought of looking at sky, but then ice and snow. And so it was just very, very intriguing. And again, a nice, what was the word I used before? Holding back when you do collage of not doing too much. So I thought that was really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, beautifully done. The print again is stunning. So after we finish going through the pieces, our other Eileen will walk around and give you a view of the gallery to see how the show is hung, what your pieces are hung next to. Next up is Patricia Littlefield, Alter. Patricia, are you here? Okay.
Well, this was another one that sort of left me in that place of what am I looking at? And I'm a little confused in a good way. I couldn't tell if it was photo montage or if it was a found scene. But then I started to explore the bottom there that looks like there's some fading away of the image. And so it almost didn't matter. I don't always have to know exactly what was done. But I liked that I kept coming back and sort of questioning, is this real? Is this montage? What's happening here? And so that was intriguing. And then I loved the use of all the textures and all the grids and lines. And of course, the color palette, just stunning.
Thank you. I believe Sherry just joined us not long ago. Sherry, is it Mele? Sherry? I thought I saw her join us a little bit ago.
Like she's here.
Are you here, Sherry?
I am here. Sorry, I had my I didn't have my things on.
Okay. Can you tell me how to correctly pronounce your name?
Malat.
Malat. Okay, thank you. And the title of her piece is Shadow Self.
Yeah. So this is a real photograph of a raven that I took in Utah, and it was really nice afternoon light, and these two ravens were kind of playing around against a rock wall, and that's where the shadow came from, was actually the rock wall. So how I did this is like I do a lot of staining of papers and watercolor paper and different types of paper, and I do the staining first, and then I figure out what image I like to go into the scene. And I thought that the raven and the shadow went really well on this, because it does feel a little bit subtle in the top, but then it also gets kind of complicated in the bottom. So I don't know, I thought it really came together well.
Yeah, I mean, I was really struck by this image, you know, not only the use of the bird that feels real and then its shadow, but then of course the title, I mean, which shows titles can have a lot of intrigue in and of themselves. They're important. They don't always have to, but they can tell a story. And so when I saw the title as well, it really intrigued me. And also, again, feeling the hand of the artist here, being able to dive into not only that this they're the intention of this, but some of the technique, I could see all the texture. I kind of felt like it was watercolor perhaps, or staining of paper. And then the area up top, which almost feels like blue and sky, and then the area below that feels like almost earth or stone, and then the birds in between that. And so I thought it was really beautiful. It has so much movement. And again, you know, any image that has lots of metaphor or symbol for me is lovely. But then again, being able to see the hand of the artist.
Paul and I have been probably 2 inches away from this print several different times, just absolutely enthralled with the texture and the surface, and trying to figure out exactly how you adhered the print. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, it actually is a photo transfer. It's a wet transfer, and you can kind of see, if you look really close, you can see where some of the ink picked up, which is totally fine. And it actually adds to, I think, particularly to the main image, not the shadow, but you can really see where it pulled some of the ink off, which works really well.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. And I love the way the print is floated. It really works well.
Oh, thank you.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
Thank you. Lisa Miller, Time Worn. Are you here, Lisa?
I am.
Okay.
So thank you for including me. I appreciate it. This one was the roses belong to a friend of mine who grows them, and she's so proud of them, and she gave them to me fresh, and I took the picture fresh, and that's the one she liked. But I liked the one after a couple days as the roses started to age, and I just like that a lot better. They're you know, you just see more character in the detail. So I just like this one better.
Yeah. Well, I love the composition. And again, you know, that idea of beauty and art, what has value, what is beautiful, what is not. And so, you know, when we photograph something that's sort of past its time, there can be a lot of symbols for that, or metaphor in that. And I really loved that. I also loved the quality of the light. The soft light on this is stunning. And also the processing, the grayscale black and white processing of it is really beautiful and seems really controlled. Even with a light that we can still see the edge of the table. I mean, there's so much detail here. And it immediately reminded me of, you know, Dutch still life painting, which I really appreciated. So really, really beautiful black and white image.
Well, thank you.
The print is gorgeous. It is remarkable.
It's fun. I'm going to just say this really quick. It's funny. I went to the Norton Simon Museum in Pasadena a couple days ago, and I love the Dutch still life. And it's funny because it's the painters trying to look like photographs, and then I do photographs trying to look like paintings. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, next, Paul Murray. Is Paul here? This is Midnight in the Lamar. Okay.
Well, again, this was, you know, I definitely wanted to include some landscape photography because I wanted the diversity and you know, the definitions of what a photograph is. And but I wanted, if it was going to be a landscape photograph, I wanted it to be special, and this was just sublime, right, is the word that I keep coming to when I look at this image. I mean, not only the nature herself and the scene itself is so beautiful, but the way the photographer created it, the light, the quality of the light, the composition, and again, the subtlety in the processing, I think on this is really stunning. Not only is the quality of the light beautiful, but the way this was processed has been handled really well. I think it would be really easy to take the processing of this to a place that didn't work. And so I appreciated the way the photographer approached the post-processing in this image. It's just stunning.
Wonderful. Daniel Rothenberg, Destruction. Is Daniel here?
Hello.
Oh, we are waiting to hear about this. We've made so many guesses about how this happened. So please tell us about it.
So it's based from the unconscious, but a lot of it was inspired by my ceramics. I got a BFA in ceramics and printmaking at Nazareth College up in Rochester, New York. And my ceramics professor would always be like, it's paper, but like you can make it more than paper when he would talk to me about my printmaking. So when I started doing photography, I really wanted to start ripping paper, bending it, folding it, seeing what I could do. And I did this print and I really liked it. I always rip before because otherwise I think it's just not organic and not that interesting. And it looked really good, but it just needed something more. And I'm always also inspired by like history and like the tombs of Egypt and things that have been buried for like 300 years, but they still look beautiful because they're gems and they're valuable. But then using the halochrome toning really gave that effect.
Mm-hmm. It was so intriguing, this image. I mean, it stopped me on my tracks, and I just kept coming back to it. I could see that there's actual physical paper here that was torn that I loved, to see that tactile quality. And then when it said a chemical painting, I assumed that there was some chemicals. I went to the idea of a chemogram of, darkroom paper and chemicals. So I loved that element of it. But then the color palette, the white with just this off-white cream behind it, was really, and then these dark edges around the torn paper was really intriguing. But then the color I kept going to the thought of human skin. I kept thinking of human skin, and then the tears with the human skin. And so it just, it was basically endless where the mind would go when I would look at this image. And I think it's just really, really beautiful. I love when in photography we can experiment and not always know exactly what the outcome is going to be, but still have control in the process of the experimentation, right? It's this dance between control and experiment. And I thought you landed in a really good place with this one.
Thank you so much. Just to say, it is a chemogram. I just didn't actually know what that term was when I labeled it for the show.
Right.
Yeah, so, and thank you for putting me in the show. It's always humbling to be around lots of great artists.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Michelle Safran with Magnified Stress. Are you here, Michelle?
Well, this was also one in a series from Michelle. There might have been, I think, how many entries? You could have 5. They were all within this same photographic series. And as soon as I saw them, I was intrigued, and I knew that one of them would be included. I loved the use of what looked to be these found images that are from some other source. I'm not sure what. There's some sort of illustrations. I almost imagine, are they some kind of like first aid or CPR imagery that was maybe taken from a book? But then I loved that Michelle took what I thought were these found images from another source and then combined them in this, what I would say is a photo collage, but the collage is actually done in to me, looks like is done in the scene, and then photographed. So it's this composite that's done right there, in the scene. And then this magnifying glass and all the images that was highlighting different areas. It was just so interesting. The fact that there's tinfoil here and these other layers of paper, but then what Michelle decided to include in each of the images as far as the interaction between the humans, it was really intriguing. And so this one really grabbed me.
It's quite striking too that the 25 by 17 inches does not include the frame size. That's the actual print size.
Oh, great.
Yes. Next up, John Stritzinger, Sacramento's Writing Overseas. John, are you with us? This one was just fascinating. As we were hanging the show and trying to figure out, the flow and how it worked. And so, not looking at pieces, but not really getting super close to them. And when we got finished and walked up and looked at this closely, we were just blown away.
Well, I mean, and again, as a juror, our opinions are subjective, and I'm a sucker for archival photographs, archival imagery, the use of family photographs. And so I was really drawn to this one, which felt like, I don't know that it's John's family or not, but I loved that it felt like this old archival photographic image of this family, but then that it's placed in this scene, and then I can see text and handwriting there. And so there's just so many elements that were brought in. And again, sometimes when we bring in lots of elements, it can just go wrong. And with this one, I felt like it just worked together beautifully. And then the really subtle color palette, I think, helps it work so that it doesn't get too confusing. Sometimes when we bring in all these different elements, it can just cost you and be too much. But the subtlety with the way John did this, I think, is really beautiful.
It's a beautiful print too, as you said, very subtle but gorgeous. Brad Tamaro, Sinister Kid. Very intrigued to know about this title. Is Brad here?
Yes, I'm here. Tamaro is how you pronounce
Tamaro,
it.
thank you.
Yeah, nobody ever gets it right. Thank you, though. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be a part of the show. This picture, I love photographing in the snow. So I was out shooting all morning and was driving down a highway and saw that yellow grass, the tall grass. So I pulled over, walked out into this field and was looking around and found this particular tree. I try to personify trees when I see them. I try to find their personalities. And when I saw that one, it just looked like it was reaching. It looked like it was coming through that grass and reaching. And in my mind, I'm like, this looks like a sinister tree. But it was also young. It was a young tree. So Sinister Kid is the name I came up with for it. And then I used a shallow depth of field to isolate that tree and kind of make the grass look almost like flames kind of coming through as well.
Yeah, really beautiful. I definitely got that. I love titles that don't, that sometimes seem very different from the image itself. I find that really intriguing. So I loved the title of this. I mean, I got what you were going for. Like, I loved the 2/3, 1/3 of this steel blue and then this golden orange. And then I definitely got this sense of fire and ice. You know, cold and warm, sharp and soft, movement and still. And so it just, you know, it can at first perhaps seem like a simple scene, but the more you look at it, again, I just kept conjuring in my mind all of these contrasts. And it's also just beautifully done. I love that you use the shallow depth of field and that the grasses in the foreground feel like they're moving or fire. And actually, when I looked at this, I wasn't entirely sure if it was found in scene or if it was a layering of two images. And so I like being left wondering sometimes. So really, really beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Brad, can you speak about the title a little bit?
I mean, again, the tree itself just looked sinister is the word that kept coming back. If I'm being totally honest, the band The Black Keys have a song called Sinister Kid. And so when I was processing it, I was listening to them too. And I think it all kind of came together. But again, when I was shooting at that shallow depth of field with the grass kind of looking like fire and the tree just kept, it was like reaching. It was like the tree was reaching out through that. And it just, sinister is the word I kept coming back to with it.
Yeah, I think what we experience is has a cumulative effect of everything that we're experiencing at the same time. By the way, just as a little side here, we are Zooming live from our gallery, and we have a lot of people who have been walking by who have wanted to come in. So that's what was just happening just a little bit ago. And we have told them to come back as soon as we're done. People are loving the show. They're really loving the show. I particularly love the palette in this one, how you have used in my estimation, a pretty simple palette to evoke a lot of power.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Mary Jane Tenerelli, Stormlight. Mary Jane, are you with us? No? Okay. She is? Mary Jane, I think you're muted. If you can hear me. Eileen Novak just said you are here.
She's definitely on the participant list.
Okay, Mary Jane is just another little bit of information here. There are artists from 17 different states in our show, and there were Eileen Rafferty selected 30 out of 550 to submissions. And as I said, there's 17 different states, and we have, I think, about 7 from New York State. And Mary Jane is one of maybe the only local artists. She is actually from Huntington. So she's not responding. So anyway, this is Mary Jane's piece.
Okay, maybe if she unmutes.
She's there. It looks like she's having trouble unmuting.
There
her.
she
I'm
is.
here. I just had to get my daughter to unmute me.
Okay, great.
I'm here.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
Well, I guess I'll
Okay,
dive in and then
Katie.
Mary Jane, you can feel free to follow up, but for me, the light in this, and I see that it's called Stormlight, the light was just so beautiful, this soft, dark light, but then also the perspective from underneath the flower, the color palette of the complementary, these yellows and blues, but totally desaturated, and greens. So it was again, I've said it a couple times, the holding back sometimes, and the subtlety, all the texture, but I just loved the darkness and desaturated quality of all the hues in this image. And again, it left me wondering, was this found in scene, or was this created as a composite? And so I just loved it, like some of the other botanical ones, it sort of had this otherworldly feel to it. And I really appreciated that.
Thank you so much. And thank you for including me. I'm really honored. Yeah, this picture and a whole series of pictures that I took in the community garden down the street from where I live, I started taking in March of 2020 when lockdown happened. So I started taking these pictures and finding a lot of solace in nature up close, and seeing how very beautiful it is, and how beautiful the world actually is. I hadn't really paid a lot of attention to nature before. So when taking these pictures, when I started working on them and editing them, I wanted to create that feeling of sort of foreboding as well as the beauty in the world, because, right now during this time, especially in the first year or so of COVID, the world was a kind of a scary place as well as a beautiful place. And I wanted to convey that in these pictures.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love that it's this, when we make a photograph, it's a moment in time, but with this image, there's this anticipation in it, because this flower is pristine and perfect, and we know that it won't stay that way for long. And then these other buds look like they're about to open. And then because it is stormlight, that light is going to change rapidly. And so it almost sits on the edge of what's going to happen next. And I also love the unexpected approach. We usually when we see macro images of flowers, it's bright and cheery and saturated and all that. And so I love the subdued darkness on this one. It's very beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful anticipation. I'm glad you're here.
Me too.
Okay. Next up, Edward Zimmerman, performance. Edward, are you with us today? Okay. The 30 by 32 inches, that may be the frame size, but the print is almost that large. I believe it is the largest print in our show, and it is actually the first piece in our show too. So it makes quite a statement.
Yeah, I like that it's big, because this seems like a scene you would want to walk into. I just think it's a great. I love when I love storytelling and narrative. And I love when a scene has been clearly set up, which I'm assuming this has because of the position of the woman in the foreground. I don't think this is a found scene. It is, wow. But so I really like when constructed realities is what we call them. And so I'm a big fan of constructed realities, because you get to decide all the elements, or you get to pose your people, and you get to tell a story from your own perspective. And so I really enjoyed all the elements of this, the boxes in nets, the boy in the foreground, this big car, this cardboard on the left-hand side, the seascape in the back, the kind of chaos on the street, but then this woman, all this box and movement, and it was just very, very intriguing. And I thought it was a really well done constructed reality.
I love that term, constructed reality, because while it's a lot of chaos, it doesn't feel chaotic when you look at the print. That is beautifully done.
Yeah.
Okay, next up by John Van de Werker, Solaria. John, are you here? Okay, the 24 by 20 inches is actually the print size.
Well, John also submitted a series all within this sort of style and same technique. And they struck me immediately for their color palette, for their sitting on the edge of photography, painting, printmaking, sculpture. And I just loved the textural element. I immediately thought about some wonderful abstract painters. And, I think, again, when something is this abstract, it could go in so many different directions. And as you said earlier, Pamela, when your students would ask, when is it done? Well, just like a painting, it's done when you decide it's done. And again, I thought this one could go in so many different places. And I really love where John landed with this as far as the composition, all the depth. And then, like I said, the really beautiful color palette. And for me, these areas of white sitting on the edge, which is a big no-no in photography, white on the edge draws our eye out. It can be distracting. For me, those white areas just really created so much more depth in this image. It's just a beautiful abstract image. And I do not care for a moment what it is or how he did it. I just really want to enjoy it.
Those white areas for me break any kind of feeling I might have had of a wallpaper type design, an overall design. This places it in a different kind of depth, a different kind of focal point. Great observation. I'm so enjoying the in-depth analysis and insight, Eileen, that you're giving on each of the pieces. Thank you so very much. This is I'm inspired by your feedback. Naona, Peaches Wallen, Galactica Lava Glow. I don't think Naona is here. Naona is from Alaska.
No, Naona? Okay. Well, I mean, it's just a stunning image, right? I mean, anybody who's done nighttime photography or tried to, capture stars and done stargazing, it's challenging. And this scene and all of its glory just struck me as soon as I saw it. I mean, as soon as I saw it, I just thought, wow, this is really well done. I love the quality of the stars in the blue dark sky, but then there's rose colored or red clouds, and then this little bit of tree in the foreground. So, I mean, just a really technically well done photograph of a nighttime sky in beautiful light and a beautiful moment, and just done extremely well.
Very rich. And then again, Carrie's piece, because we wanted to keep them in alphabetical order as well. Amy Joyce Winkler there. Are you here, Amy?
I'm here.
This is just so beautiful.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure. So this is a self-portrait. I've been working with self-portrait photography for the past year and a half. I, as a lot of other people, have struggled with body image issues. So in order to find peace with myself, I started to take photos of myself. And here, in lying in the light, I kind of felt like I was there in the feeling and contentment, which is why I decided to call it that.
I love the title. And I mean, it's so beautiful. You might be seeing a trend in the images I've picked as far as, deep saturated, perhaps, dark. And again, there's a variety of images, but that was what really struck me about this one, is the dark shadows and the fact that most of the tones are in that shadow region. We would call it a low-key photograph, except for just this little element of light. And that little element of light actually, as I looked closer, made me realize it was a color photograph, not a black and white. And I loved that subtlety of it sitting right on the edge of color. Only would have known that because of the light falling. And then the way that light on your back looks like vertebra was just so beautiful. And so I'm glad to hear it's a self-portrait. I wondered if it was. I'm a big fan of self-portraits. And so I think it's beautifully done. It's really elegant. And thanks for sharing your story behind it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all the kind words and being in the show.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We have Hao Zhang, Untitled. Is Hao here?
No. Well, I talked about constructed realities, and I thought about this when I looked at this one, and this was another one that left me saying, to myself, is this an actual scene? Is this a found scene, or did they put this scene that we see through the window? Is it a composite? And so I don't know, and I don't care. Again, I love an image that leaves me sitting on the edge of again, is this reality? Is this constructed? Is it found? What's happening here? And then I love this. I love all the really rigid, use of lines and squares and this really centered composition. I love the contrast between the greens outside and the warm red inside, the man-made interior and the beautiful natural exterior, the sharpness and the softness. I mean, this image just sucked me in, and again, just beautiful. I love the shadows on the inside and then all the bright on the outside. Very intriguing image.
When I looked at this image, I immediately thought of the kind of constructed control in a Frank Lloyd Wright kind of environment as juxtaposed against the outside environment. It was fascinating.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Jeff Wall as well, if there were people in it.
Right, and his pieces, huge pieces, are just magnificent.
Yeah.
And again, here's Manzu. So we've gone through all of the images, and again, oh my goodness, I can't thank you enough, Eileen, for the depth and breadth of your feedback for everyone. And let me ask, is there anyone who has a question for Eileen or a comment? Please just unmute yourself and feel free to join in. I think we're going to just finish up with Eileen. Did you want to walk around and do a quick view of the? Okay, I'm going to unshare the screen then so that you can actually see how our gallery is set up. We are so proud of the show. Give me just a second here. Why can't I? Oh, here we go. I'm going to stop the share.
Pam, can I make a comment?
Of course.
I just want to say I had been in on a couple of Zooms of Eileen's. I think they were through B&H, I'm not sure. And I thought she was wonderful. And I think her choices in the show were also wonderful. This show is very impressive. It's so diverse, and really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Susan. Susan is one of the photographers in our fotofoto gallery collective. So she's had an opportunity to really see the works. Now, did anyone else have anything you'd like to add or ask? Eileen is getting set up to tour the room so that you can get. Oh, okay. Hold on one second. You may have to help me with that because I don't remember how to get the spotlight. Hold on one second. Let's see. Okay, just give us a second, folks. Spotlight for everyone. Here we go. Great. Thank you very much. Oh, that's pause. Okay, okay, now you have another view. We have a couple of different cameras set up. It's been an interesting learning curve for us to Zoom live from the gallery and not get feedback. And thank goodness we have Eileen Novak, who's our technical wizard. Okay, it's
Right now it's pointed outside.
okay. Just bear with us for a second, please. Okay, let's see. Eileen is okay. By the way, folks, this show ends on March 5th. I have videotaped several short videos. I've filmed several short videos of the show, so you can find them on both Instagram and on our Facebook page. And I believe we're set up now for Eileen to make her way around the gallery so that you can actually see. The piece that you're seeing right now is the first piece that you see when you walk in the gallery. And of course, there you see the winner's poster. And below that is Eileen Rafferty's wonderful juror statement. And yeah, if you just going to take a walk around the gallery. Paul and I had a great time figuring out the flow of the show, and I would love to hear both your feedback, Eileen Rafferty, as well as feedback from our exhibiting artists about how the show is set up. You need okay there? Okay. Yeah, we just added something to the floor to keep people from tripping over cords. So here we go. Okay, so if maybe we could just pan to the right a little bit first, Eileen, so people can see. That's great. This is also the second show that we've hung using our new hanging system. Prior to this, for each show, we would have to spackle, sand, and paint between each show. So the gallery space is probably about 45 feet long. So it's a good size space. We're located in the village of Huntington, and we're open on Thursdays from 12:30 to 4, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Now, if you're interested in coming to see the show, but you're not available during any of those time periods, please give us a call, email me, and we'd be more than happy to meet you in the gallery on a day when we're not open. You know, if you have friends you'd like to bring, that would be wonderful. So if you'd like to make any comments, please feel free to unmute yourself. This is the piece that I mentioned before that I felt like it has, you know, while the subject matter is very vintage, I love that it's actually printed on acrylic. So Eileen Rafferty, are you?
I'm here.
Okay, would you care to comment on the show itself?
I mean, I think it looks great just from the broader perspective.
Okay, great. I'm glad you approve.
Yes.
You know, it's my feeling that a show is well hung if when people walk into a gallery, they don't notice how it's hung. All they notice is the work. Right. That's always been my measure.
You know, the only thing I would give feedback to all the participants, as someone who's been in the photographic world for many decades, is do not underprice yourself. Charge accordingly. And I know, you know, you're not going to be extravagant, but, you know, charge for what you think.
Hold on just a second. Eileen, we can't hear you. So Eileen Rafferty's talking. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eileen.
Oh, just don't be afraid to charge, you know, what you think your imagery is worth. I just saw some of the prices on some of the images look extremely low. And you know, don't price to, well, sorry to the gallery. I don't want to say don't price to sell, because you're also a, you know, want to make some profit, but also I think that all the photographers should, you know, and the gallery should, you know,
I agree with you 100%.
get what they deserve. This is your personal expression. It's hard work, and you know, photography has a long history of being undervalued relative to other art mediums, and so don't be afraid to you know, charge accordingly.
Oh, thank you for that.
It's a really
Okay,
beautiful space. The gallery is a beautiful space.
Thank you. We underwent some scary times at the beginning of COVID when we were actually closed for 5 months. And that's when a lot of our shows became you know, online. And we were still showing works and doing a lot of videotaping, a lot of Zoom receptions, and you know, some people have said, oh, I can't wait for us to you know, not do that again. But honestly, and I'd like some feedback from some of you. My feeling is that we're going to have, I would want to stay with a hybrid model of doing our receptions, because so many of you could never have come to our reception, and we wouldn't have had the opportunity to hear your backstory, your insight, your feedback. And I think that's what it's about. You know, it's not about just seeing the work, in my estimation. So, I mean, please feel free to chime in with any of your own thoughts.
Yeah, it's a really great point. It was really nice to hear from each of the artists, which we wouldn't be able to do unless, you know, we were all there together.
Yes. Okay, so I think we've just about made it around the gallery. Eileen got a new table, a rolling table that she's actually going to be using for some workshops that she's going to be teaching. So this is, and it's some experimenting as well. So again, Eileen Rafferty, I am just blown away by you know, the insight that you've provided and the pieces that you've shown. It's inspired me to look at works a different way. One of our photographers, Michael Dracopoulos, in our collective, was gallery sitting yesterday, and he read your statement and he said, you know, that's not usually the way I approach looking at work, you know, as making a picture, but he said, but I'm going to consider it. So I love that response. Okay, please visit us at fotofotogallery.org, on Instagram at fotofotogallery, on our YouTube channel, where you will see an edited version of this recording in the not too distant future. And please check out again our website. And if you are anywhere close to Huntington Village, we would love to hear from you. Again, I'm Pamala Waldroup, Paul Mele, and here we are. Eileen. Okay, what are we looking for here? Okay, all right. Okay, and I see lots of people making comments. Thank you so much for your comments. Congratulations. Okay. Folks, if you would like to, I will say this last but not least, if you would like to be able to be in touch with some of the people in the gallery, please put your website or your email in the chats, and we will make sure that you receive those. Okay. All right. So is there anything you'd like to add, Eileen Rafferty?
Just congratulations to everyone, and really, really beautiful work. You know, to have only 40 people of almost 600 entries, you know, be proud, keep making interesting work. And then I just put in the chat, if anybody wants to reach out via email to, you know, say hi or keep in touch. My email's probably in some of the material, and then also, I mean, my website's just eileenrafferty.com, and you can reach me through that. So I'd love to hear from any of you.
Okay.
Thanks so much. Awesome work.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Everyone be safe. Happy Valentine's Day. And we hope to hear from you again soon. Have a good evening.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.